Welcome to Adding Content with Tools in Photoshop. Let's go ahead and click File, New. We're going to create a document called Adding Content, and the dimensions can be 700 pixels by 700 pixels. Make sure it's not inches but pixels. We'll keep the screen resolution at 72. Click OK. We have our colors defaulted with our foreground is black and our background is white. Let's click on the foreground color. And this is kind of a fall scene, so let's go ahead and choose a green. If you get the out of gamut warning, just click it, and it will show you the next closest color that will come up in printing for RGB. Next, let's go ahead and click on our background color, and let's choose from the hue line more of an orangish brown, and go ahead and choose your color and somewhat of an orange. So we have a green and an orange. One of the first things I'd like to do is show kind of a road, but I want it to be a fuzzy road. So I'm going to go up to my paintbrush, believe it or not, and I'm going to turn on the feature that says Enable Airbrush Mode. When I go over and I choose which brush to use, I'm going to choose one that has the fuzziness to it. So we'll choose the first brush, and I'm going to choose one that's a little bit wider for now, okay, for our road, and maybe even, let's say, 120 pixels. Now, go down to the bottom of your screen, please. Hold down Shift and just drag. Now, perhaps we wanted it to be more the orangish brown. So let's do this. Let's go back up in the History palette, and notice with your History palette, we're going to go back to New. Then we need to switch these colors. So see the little arrow over on your color palette. Click it and it will switch. Now again, go back down to the bottom of your document, hold down Shift and click. Notice the fuzziness around it. That is the airbrushing effect. Okay, next let's go ahead and add some dune grass to this. So for the dune grass, let's change our brush. So I'm going to click the down arrow and find the grass. I see a couple. There's normal grass and then there's dune grass. Let's click on the dune grass. It's usually about 112 pixels. I'm just going to dial it down to about 80 pixels. Hit enter. And I'm going to want this to be more the green variety, so I'm going to switch again my background and foreground colors. Now I'm going to start just above where my road is and show the dune grass coming off almost in a dirt effect. Now watch, I can add to the dune grass to really thicken it, to make it look thick, and I can also adjust the flow rate so it's not so intense. So if we dial that down to, let's say, 80, you'll see when you draw the next line it's just not as vibrant. And if you change the opacity, that really affects it. So you can't, let's put that at 80 as well. Now do it, it seems more and more in the distant and wispy. Okay. Now that we have our dune grass, let's go ahead and add some falling leaves. So first I'd like you to change your colors to a more vibrant green. More vibrant green, hit the out of gamut if needed, and a more vibrant orange for the background. Even brown would be fine. Say OK. Alright, we've changed our colors. We're still on our brush. Let's click the down arrow, and I want you to notice over here that they have a little arrow in the upper right hand corner where you could click it, and you could add all sorts of types of brushes that you might want, like natural brushes, round brushes, special effects, calligraphy brushes. So whenever you see on any palette that there's a little arrow on any options, window, anything that pops up, that's what you get to do, is choose more brushes. This time I'm going to choose, it's called Scattered Maple Leaves. So let's go ahead and choose that. That's number 74. And with the Scattered Maple Leaves, I want you to notice the green is my predominant color. So I'm going to go ahead and click that a couple times, and it does Scattered Leaves. Now if I go over and I switch my colors, you'll see it gives you different colors to choose from. It's very pretty. It appears that your leaves are falling down. Again, if I adjust the opacity, it becomes even more vibrant, and the flow rate, watch the intensity and saturation pop out. If I wanted my leaves to change colors, let's suppose I wanted to select this lighter colored orange that I had originally, I could click into my foreground color, and then I could just drop down and I could choose from my picture the color I desire, and then say OK. Now if I click on more leaves, you'll see they're actually going to bring in slightly different colors than what we had before. And that was it for painting tools and colors. Okay, now we're going to continue with adding content with File New, and this time we're talking about drawing and selection tools. Now, the 700 by 700 pixels for the dimensions of our document is good. Say OK. To start, I need to change my colors to the good old black and white, foreground and background. I'm going to click this for the defaults. You may have to do the same. And we're going to go to our selection tools for the rectangular marquee. So let's choose that and go ahead and just draw a rectangle. Now it looks pretty plain Jane, but in a minute let's right click. Notice that you can do all kinds of things here, but let's start with giving it a stroke. That means we're going to add a border to it. 10 pixels is actually a good width, so we'll keep it at that. The color, we can choose, I'll make this maybe a red of some type, and click my auto gamut. And I'm deciding I want this on the inside rather than the outside at a 50% opacity. Say OK. There we go. Now, let's right click again. What if we changed our mind and we wanted this to be on the outside? Let's go again to the stroke, and we could say, oh, I want this on the outside. And but this time I want it to be 100% opacity. And I'm OK, but I want the 15 pixel width. Say OK to that, and you'll see what it does. It gives you two borders, which is pretty cool. Now right click again. We're going to fill this with something. So let's fill. Let's add a color of our own, not the fore or background, but a different color. So now I'm just going to say I want to add some kind of yellow. There we go, that's fine with me. Say OK. And the opacity is at 50. I'll just say OK. Now notice what it does when I hit Control D to deselect, or I could hit Select, deselect, that it went on top of the pink of it, making it almost look like a tan on the edge because of the opacity change. Moving on to your drawing tools. Okay, let's go over to our drawing tool icon where the rectangular tool is. Let's suppose we don't want a circle today, but we want a polygon of a type. Let's move to polygons. Notice we have our other item already put on our background layer. If we would like a new layer and we only want one item on that layer, we're going to choose shape layers. So let's go ahead and choose a different color just because we get bored. And we're going to choose a blue of some type, say OK. And notice we're on the rectangle. We can decide how many sides. Let's set 8 sides to this. And if you hold down Shift and you just draw, then it should do your 8-sided octagon for you. All right, now what if we wanted to have a star instead? If you click the down arrow on the polygon options, you can click on star. It tells you how much it's going to be indented. And now let's see what happens. Boop, we have a star. So that wasn't too hard just to use our custom options. Okay, wonderful. But notice each time we did this, they're vector masked because it's on shaped layers. Let's go to fill pixels. This means that this time everything will be put on a same layer. If I try to just draw something now, it's going to tell me this shape layer has to be rasterized, meaning it won't be a vector mask anymore. If we want to continue, do we want to? I'll say cancel, and I'll just, this time, make a new layer, click, and this is where I'll put the rest of my items. Now, let's go into custom shapes. So just like we could select from this toolbar over here at the left, we can also select items from our options bar. So I'm going to click on the custom. If I click the down arrow, you're going to see there's standard shapes to choose from. But what if I want something really special? This arrow to the upper right hand corner of this drop down box will give us multiple other options. What if I wanted a banner or award, or an animal, or talk bubbles, or one of my favorites, web, and always append, so you add them at the end and then zoom down to the end. And so, for example, if I want a shopping cart, and I'm going to change my opacity to make sure I'm first at 100%. If you aren't, please make sure you are. So I'm going to go down and choose that shopping cart, and when I draw it, it's a nice little shopping cart for the web. Very cool, and I didn't have to draw it. So don't forget about all your wonderful custom shapes that can help you out, especially if you are not the perfect artiste. Finally, we're going to add different types of text. So let's do File New, and let's go ahead and say Adding Text. And the 700 by 700 pixels is good. Now, make sure that you're back to the black and white just for a minute. And let's go ahead and choose any color that you'd want for your text. I'm going to actually choose this time just kind of a purple. Purple sounds good. I'll go ahead and click my gamut warning, say OK. All right, to start with, let's go to our type tool and choose the horizontal type tool. Notice your option bar comes up. It tells you font sizes, whether you want regular, italics, bold. So let's go ahead, and of course all the different font types. So I'm just going to let it default, and I'm just going to choose, actually a 75 point's good, and it's going to be purple. So I'm going to go ahead and just click, and I'm going to say hello there. Okay, hello there. Now notice that this is underlined. I could select it. I could change the font, let's say to an 80 if I wanted to right now. I could go ahead and change my font type if I wanted to right now. I could change whatever I wanted to change. Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do is go ahead and click Commit, and it commits your text. Now, let's suppose I wanted to modify that text, and I wanted to use this little tool called Warp. Let's go back, and if I double click on the T within my layers palette, it will again select the text. But notice I have my type tool selected. Now I'm going to click on this little button on the options bar that says Warp to create warp text. Notice it looks pretty blank. Doesn't look like we can do anything because we first have to select a style. Click the down arrow. I don't like to get too crazy. I'm just going to do a flag. Now notice I can adjust if I want that horizontal, vertical, and I can adjust the bend in my hello there. Come on, get your groove on. Let's go there. All right. And you can adjust the horizontal distortion as well as the vertical distortion. But the point is we must be able to read it. Say OK, and if you like it, go ahead and commit. Easy as pie. Now we know how to warp our text. Next, let's go ahead and do a horizontal type mask with your name. So we have our purple, and let's choose a different background color. So with the purple, what might I want? Oh, purple and blue for sure, for sure. Okay, there we go. I'm going to say OK. At this time, I'm going to go back to my type tool, and I'm going to choose just a horizontal type mask. I'm going to make this right over here. I'm going to click, and it turned pink because it's a mask. Now I just want you to type your last name. Now I really didn't want this font still, so I'm going to highlight it, get out of the Jokman font. Okay, I like this better. Now I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to make it more like 100 point. And notice that at this time, when I click commit, it just becomes clear with marching ants. That's because it's time to get your paintbrush. Get your paintbrush. So I'm just going to choose an airbrush. Now, what I want to do is I actually want to paint. And it says this layer, but it's because I'm on the hello there layer, has to be rasterized before I can paint on it. So I was bad. I should have made a first layer before I tried to drop them both together. So at this time I could either cancel or continue on. Since this is just for an example, I'm going to say okay. Now watch. I can brush in the purple. Maybe I'll do a little bit more up here. Then go over to your color palette and just switch the colors. So now I'm going to be working with the opposite color, blue. So here we go. And you can just make it look awfully pretty with your name. When you're all done, you can hit select, deselect, control D, and look at that beautiful word. It's beautiful, darling. Gorgeous. Okay, so that's how you do your horizontal type mask. Finally, let's learn how to put text on a path. So what I'm going to ask you to do is add your first name on a path around your last name. I'll tell you what, we'll put on a new layer. This is going to be your first name. We're going to be using our pen tool for this. See the pen tool over here? You'll not only be using that, but let's go ahead and change back to the horizontal type tool. And you'll be using your path selection tool as well. These three tools to do your path. Let's start with the pen tool. What I'd like to do is I'd like to click once, and then I'm going to go over here and click on the opposite side, but I want a nice semicircle somewhat, rainbow over my last name to create my first name on. Then I drop it. So I had to drag the line to create the path. Now I go down to my type tool. It's pretty big. I'm going to change this instead to maybe a 60 point. And I'm just going to, instead of, maybe I will keep it purple. Okay, I'll do it purple. And I'm going to click at the left-hand side. And go ahead, please, and type your first name. Now I didn't want this font again, so I'm going to change it back to something else that'll just be different. Okay. Now if I want it bigger, I can go ahead and just make it a lot bigger, like 100 point. Now it's time to move my name on the path. So I'm going to click the next selection toolbar down, which is my path selection tool. So I'm going to move my name with my, oh, look what I could do. I can go up with it, down with it, I can move it. So I'm just going to kind of center my name over my other name. Now I'm done. So again, you had to click on your path selection tool and you had to move it from the edge. See where the black arrow comes in? Yeah, I mean, but I'd like you to try to center it above your other name. Okay. Now, commit, and there we go. This is on a path. This is with a horizontal type mask. And hello there is warped.